In this lesson, I want to look at how we can codelessly extend the interface using a technique called Runblock. Here you can see that I'm looking at the company screen. I've logged on as the system administrator. I'm looking at the opportunities for a company called Eurolandia. Now, at the moment, I can't see directly any of the quotations associated with this company. If I want to view a quotation, I have to go into each of the individual opportunities to see if a quote has been raised. Here you can see that a single quote has been raised for the opportunity and therefore for the company Eurolandia. Now it might be that we want to be able to view all of the quotes that have been sent to a company directly from the level of the company. So we can do this very easily using the Runblock technique. What we have to do is we have to understand that any list that we see is ultimately based on a view, and we have to think about how the view is related to the current context. So we want to make sure that anything that we are viewing is related to the company in this instance. To do this, I need to navigate off to look within the administration and consider the quotations. So I'm going to click on quotes, and I've navigated into administration, customization, quotes, and I want to now look at the different lists. After all, I want to be able to display a list of quotes. Before I go in to look at the columns displayed within the quotes list, I just want to make sure that this quotes list is based on a view that is linked to the company. And here you can see that the list references a view called vQuote_oppos. vQuote_oppos is defined within the context of the quotes, and we can examine that here. So vQuote_oppos is a system view, and we can see that vQuotes_oppo then is referencing a view called vQuote_opportunity. Now that view is defined up at the level of the opportunity, and if we look at the views here, vQuote_opportunity is a system view again, and in this case we can see very clearly that the opportunity and company tables are unified. So you can see that there's a join that goes across to the company information. And the important thing that I'm looking for is that the company ID field is referenced within the view. So in our case, if I go to customization, if I go to quotes, and I look at the list that I want to reference within inside the company context, that quotes list is based on a view which references a view which includes the company ID. That means I can use this view with confidence, knowing that it would be able to establish the context and restrict the rows that are returned. So in my case, I can now go in and examine the particular columns that I want to display in the context of the company. So we can see that we have the status, and we can see that we have the total information as well. And we can have this rendered in any way that we need. I'm going to cancel from this, and now I want to use that inside the context of the company. So if I go to Administration, Customization and choose Company, I'm going to select the tab group associated with the company context. And this is the tab group company. I click to edit this, and I'm going to add in now a new option within this tab group, and I'll call this quotes. The action is going to be Runblock, and I'm going to call the list block that was defined in the quotes context. So I'm using list quotes, a quotes list which is based on a view which ultimately references a column of comp_company ID. I can then add that into my tab group and move it next to the opportunities. Once that's done, I can save this, and now if I navigate to the company in the user context, so I switch across and look at my company, we can see that in my system I now have a new tab called quotes, which if I click on quotes, it will list all of the quotes which are associated with the company Eurolandia, and I can see the status of each of the quotes. This then allows us to construct our own new lists which bring completely new information into the context. Now I can extend this idea not just for CRM tables, but I can also extend this idea into structures which are outside CRM. So for example, I might want to link to an external ERP database table and bring data inside that system to display it underneath the My CRM menu. So what I can do here is I can now move across to administration, move to advanced customization, because it's here that I'm now going to create a connection to the external database. So I'm in administration, advanced customization, and I'm going to choose tables and databases, and I'm going to create a new database connection. I need to connect to the server, and I can connect to a wide range of different database types, but in this case my ERP server that I'm connecting to is the same database server, is the same location as my own database server. So here I just need to type in localhost, and the database name that I'm connecting to is Panoply Tech, and I need to provide the username and password that I'm connecting with. Once that has defined the connection, I will be then able to connect to the individual tables. These connections are defined with inside metadata, and the metadata is going to be used by the different structures, including Runblock, to allow us to construct screens and lists as we need them. So I'm connecting to a table called contacts, and this is inside the database of Panoply Tech, and I want to make sure that the correct ID is used, and in this case it happens to be company ID. Once the database is defined, we will see underneath customization that linked database table is treated as a secondary entity, and we can navigate to it and we can start to change any of the metadata that we need to inside the system. And you can see here that I could change the caption for a particular field. I can change the use of the field so that we use, instead of a text field, we could represent that as a selection list, and we could either create new selection list entries, or we could create a we can use an existing lookup. In this case, I will link this to the existing address lists of countries. And I'll save that record, and that will be updated Email addresses, etc. can all be changed as necessary, so we can make changes as we like to any of these structures. I can change that to be treated by Sage CRM as an email address, and I can change structures and use the particular entry types within Sage CRM to model my external table as though it was completely a table inside CRM. One thing that we can't do is define a view directly inside the context of the company, but we can nevertheless create a list, and I can navigate here into lists, and I can now create a list for my contacts. So I've created a contacts list based on contacts, and I can add the columns that I want into this list. So here I'm going to add in the company name, I'll add in the country, I'll add in the email, and then the web address as well. So we've added 4 columns into this list block, and you can see that there are create scripts and custom content to allow me to add in any other business rules that I want. And I can allow for the information to be updated by, or allow order by, or show heading, or any of the other properties for a field inside a list. So we now have a defined list. In my case, this is contacts list, and if I want to display it into the My CRM menu, I'm going to add this through advanced customization to the system menus, and the menu I need to change is the user menu. So I click on the user menu, and in here I can now choose to invoke the contacts, and I'll call these my ERP contacts to emphasize that they are coming from the external system. And I'll use my Runblock action and call the contacts list. I can then add that and move that up next to the opportunities. Actually, I'll move that up next to the contacts list, and I'll choose save. Once that's saved, I can test how that behaves by returning to the main menu, and we see that there's the ERP contacts tab available to us, that if we select, we see that this has now pulled back the data from inside the external system. And so this is showing all of the information that we wanted. So that shows us that Runblock can be used to extend Sage CRM without any code being used. And all we've done here is made sure that we have used the defined blocks when we've been referring to them inside our menus and inside our tab groups and button groups. And to remind us on how that's being done, we can look at the quotes here within the company tab, and we can see that we've called quotes through the Runblock referencing the list. So that then is the idea of extending CRM without any code using the Runblock feature.